Okay, Passover is over. I mean, the angel of the Lord passed over the Egyptians, and we got out of that. The missiles from Iran passed over Israel while we were actually celebrating Passover. We got out of that. But I want to kind of make a deeper connection to what's going on because we need to talk about what's going on in the Middle East and kind of tie it all together. The region is not in the full-scale war that you could have thought about. I mean, this is not a World War II style kind of war, but this is an ongoing war as we speak. And 15E, I think, 2 pilots, was literally shot down over Iran yesterday. And I think they've recovered the pilot, they've rescued the pilot, but they're still looking for the navigator or the weapons operator. And so the Iran war is still going on. I'm not going to say full-fledged because Israel also has said that they've finished taking out most of the targets that they need to take out. But there's this feeling that we're waiting for an agreement to kind of work together. Everything is hinged on Iran. This is a 3-pronged or 3-front or 3-scale kind of war, if you want to put it that way. And the war in Iran and everything that's going to come out of that and everything that's going to happen in the Middle East as a result of that. The war in Lebanon, northern Israel, there is fighting now on the ground in southern Lebanon. I know because I have nephews there. I have friends there. The military unit that Gijon Springs is supporting is there in southern Lebanon right now. We haven't forgotten the Gaza kind of front. And the feeling is that even though there's a little bit of action still in Gaza, the situation in Gaza is always waiting for that. So there is this pause. There is this situation that we're dealing with right now. And the question is, what's going to happen? Now, I'm not a prophet. I'm not a politician. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a philosopher. I mean, I'm none of all of these. But we all know that Iran is the central problem, the central issue. And when that is decided upon or agreed upon or situated, for lack of a better word, then all the rest of the things will start lining up. The strategic overview is that Iran remains a threat as of now. Iran remains a threat because it has said it wants to be a threat to the United States. It has said it wants to be a threat to Israel. And we understand today that to take away their capability to be a threat, probably we cannot do that completely. Even if they don't have the nuclear up and running right now, the fact that they have designated themselves as a threat to the West, as a threat to the United States, means that as long as this situation is in place, they will find a way to be the threat. I mean, their whole reason for existence is the mukawama, or we call the resistance, or to stand up against the West. And as long as they say that is who they are and that is what they're going to do, the question is not whether they have enough ballistic missiles now, if they have 1,000 or 2,000. The question is not if they have a nuclear bomb right now. We know that they are going to be trying to reach a capability to be a threat to the United States. And I think that is what President Trump has understood. And I think the world has to understand this also. The negotiation is still going on. There's a tit for tat. I mean, if any of you have ever been to the Old City in Jerusalem, you know how this negotiation goes. You have to say that you have something to offer. You have to say that you're willing to walk away. And you have to say that the other side of the negotiation has something to lose. And I think President Trump is doing that big time right now. But he's trying to negotiate because he's trying to avoid a full regional war. We're on the edge of this war becoming a full-out Middle Eastern war, meaning Saudi Arabia gets in. I mean, they've been bombed. They have every reason to get in. The United Arab Emirates get in. They've been bombed. They have every reason to get in. Qatar, Kuwait. On the other side of Iran, there's Pakistan. Pakistan is in a tense situation with India. There's actually been some fighting and shooting across the border. So we're still in this understanding that we want to reach a negotiation, but it seems like the difference in opinions between the Iranians and the United States is so great that see it, at least from now, hard to see some kind of an agreement. Again, America is saying 3 or 4 main ideas for this war, or for this, whatever you want to call it, is one, no nuclear Iran. Iran saying we want to be a threat to America and we want to have nuclear capabilities to do it. America saying we're not willing, as long as you say you're a threat to America, we're not willing for you to have nuclear capabilities. Iran is saying we want to be a threat to America, and as we put together nuclear capabilities, we want to be able to fire ballistic missiles into the civilian population and the economic infrastructure of our neighbors, not only Israel, but all of our neighbors. And we will use that ballistic capability to make sure that you don't stop us from having nuclear capability. And the United States is saying we cannot agree to that. Another thing that the United States is saying to Iran, we need you to give up your proxies. We're not willing for the Houthis in Yemen at the switch of your switch to close off the Red Sea access. We will not accept that. This is not a possibility. As long as you want to be a threat, we are not willing for you to have the ability or the capability through proxies to threaten us or anybody else. And last but not least, the United States is saying we will not allow you to be a threat to the Strait of Hormuz and to all the movement of oil through the world. Iran is saying, no, we're not going to give up those. We're willing to negotiate what we give up in order to reach some kind of agreement. But it seems like the difference between what they're saying and they're saying is so great that this probably won't work, which is why the next option, the military option, seems to be, at least to me, the more possible or the most relative of the scenarios. When we talk about a military option, based on the fact that the president has said that it will not allow American soldiers to conquer Iran, or the way they say it is boots on the ground, some kind of amphibious escalation, that means that they will take strategic points in the Strait of Hormuz. The strategic points are probably 3 islands that sit inside the Persian Gulf, 3 islands that are actually in the Persian Gulf that are under Iranian control right now, but are disputed if they are actually Iranian territory. And I think that what probably would happen is the United States of America, President Trump, is going to send in the Marines. He brought in the 2 Marine carriers, and he's brought in 2 Marine units and a couple of airborne units, and he's going to take up those islands. And based on the fact that they're not actually agreed Iranian property, they are disputed territories. I know, I mean, as an Israeli to say that, that's amazing, but he will actually take up those islands with an amphibious assault, with an airborne assault, and actually put pressure on the Straits of Hormuz, put pressure on the Gulf. And what he is doing, not only allowing others to go through, what he is doing when he does this is he closes off Iranian access, meaning the Iranians won't be able to get out their oil. And he's saying, we, the United States of America, don't need the oil. You need the oil. I mean, if you have a problem with us not allowing Iran to get the oil out, go get the oil yourself, which we'll talk about the European thing in a few minutes. The risk of this is an economic explosion. I mean, the price of oil is still going up. I think my wife just said that the price of gas in California is hitting something like $6 a gallon, which is crazy. This is going to be the main issue that is going to put pressure. The Iranians are hoping this is going to happen. This is what's going on. So that's the tit for tat that's going on. Can America put enough pressure on the Iranians for the Iranians to put enough economic pressure into the world system? And in the meantime, there's a negotiation that, according to yesterday, fell apart. We're not sure what's going to happen. A major issue, though, a major change, is if Americans start losing their lives in this war in Iran, which brings us to the downing of an F-15E yesterday, which is a major escalation. The fact that they did manage to get through and bring down a plane is not surprising. With the amount of airstrikes over Iran, it was just a matter of time until an Israeli or an American plane was targeted and brought down. This pilot, well, one of the pilots successfully parachuted, and he has been rescued by American forces. The weapons operator is still on the ground in Iran, as far as I know right now. And that's going to be a big story, because if they get their hands on him and parade him through the media, that is going to be a major asset or major problem for the Americans with their support for this war at home. On the other hand, if they do get in and save him and rescue him, then that'll be an amazing asset for Trump. And again, this is what we're going. Again, this is war. You're going to lose an airplane. You're going to lose people in wars like that. The amount of casualties in this amazing bombing campaign is like nothing. But again, in this kind of war, it's what the media says more important than anything like. So we're walking a line right now between diplomacy and war, and that line is getting thinner as we speak. That's the Iran, Israel, Middle East, Persian Gulf, United States of America kind of front. We're going to have to wait and see how that works out. In the meantime, the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon has been firing rockets into downtown Israel, mostly in the more northern part of Israel. And Israel is saying we cannot allow this to continue. I mean, we have fought 3 wars in southern Lebanon, and this is the third. I mean, I was in the first war, the first war in 1982. There was the second Lebanese war in 2006. This is now the third, and it's not like in between it was quiet. So Israel's enemies have been using southern Lebanon to base its attack into Israel. Now, they're not going to conquer Israel, though some of the ideas or some of the plans of the Hezbollah was to pull off a 7th of October style attack into Israel, take hostages, bring them back into Lebanon, and kind of see what was going to happen. We don't see something like that happening today, but the minute the war with Iran started, Hezbollah in Lebanon started firing into Israel, and Israel saying this is enough. So Israel is now moving in and literally conquering the southern part of Lebanon. Why is this weird for me? Because I know the valleys, I know the hills, I know the roads. I've done this in the past. And we conquer it, and then we move out, and again, the enemy moves in and uses it as a base to attack Israel. Israel does not want to hold on to southern Lebanon, but we cannot allow this to continue. So the objective is to move into the Litani River, which is about 40 miles from the border with Israel in some places, probably about 10, 12 miles in other places, and to create a buffer zone between the threat in southern Lebanon, or the main threat in southern Lebanon, to Israel. And the argument that we're having in Israel right now is, okay, let's say we go in and we conquer, then what do we do? In the past, we went in, we sat there, and in the end, we pulled out, and the Hezbollah actually moved back in. There's a lot of people saying today, we should go in and just take it. Just annex it. Just take it. Make it a part of Israel. That way we can be sure that nobody's going to be using that against us anymore. This is not a new strategic. This is part of Israel's doctrine. I mean, if you can't reach an agreement diplomatically, and again, after the first war, we reached an agreement. After the second Lebanese war, 2006, I actually think I remember the number 7011 was an agreement that the Hezbollah would never attack Israel from southern Lebanon. We reached the agreements, and it doesn't work. Just like with Iran, even if they do sign a non-nuclear agreement, it doesn't work. We know that they were still pushing a nuclear threat under the table, under the negotiations, under the agreement. So you can't stop the threat diplomatically, then you push it physically away. There are negotiations going with the Lebanese government. There is talk that is going on with the Lebanese government, but it's, again, like with Iran, it's parallel. So you put pressure on the government on one hand, and you negotiate out of power and not out of weakness. And the offer is to the Lebanese, take control of your territory, take control of Hezbollah, and the United States of America and Israel and everybody else in the world will throw or bestow all of its money and support and love and appreciation on you. The only problem is they can't. They can't prevent the Hezbollah from taking on Israel. And the reason that they can't prevent it is that the central government is weak. The central government doesn't have control. The Hezbollah has been funded, trained, and is much more brutal than the local Lebanese population by not by chance because they are Shia Muslim and most of the Lebanese are Christian Arabs and you don't have that kind of brutality. So the idea is that the reality on the ground is that Hezbollah is stronger than the Lebanese state. And as long as that situation continues, we cannot reach an agreement with Lebanon, and Hezbollah is not willing to give up its weapons. That's exactly where we were. We were at an agreement like that. The situation right now is Israel is fighting to take control of the southern part of Lebanon physically, as opposed to Iran physically on the ground. And when that happens, we will be holding a piece of territory and we will have to decide what we do with it. My recommendation, until something major changes inside Lebanon, keep it in Israeli hands. And maybe we'll talk about that in another of our podcasts. Let's talk about Gaza. Gaza now has a new status quo, for lack of a better word. Israel actually has created a buffer between the Israeli border and the terror of the Gaza tunnels. We have a yellow line. A yellow line is a designated line inside the Gaza border, where on the outside of the yellow line on the border with Israel is under Israeli control. Inside is under Gaza control. And one of the things that the yellow line does is cuts off access from the Gaza Strip to Egypt, which is where they were getting their arms, their funding, and everything in between. And now it's like this, okay, let's wait until see what's going to happen in Iran. And the whole idea, what President Trump has been trying to do, is to outflank the United Nations by creating this Council of Peace in order to solve the Gaza problem. But again, it's all hinged on what happens with Iran. When the Iran issue is solved, then the world will go to deal with the Gaza issue. And I have a feeling that the Lebanon issue will also be solved at some point. So the strategic situation is that Gaza is not the main front. It is contained and it is managed at a certain extent. And I think, again, this is what I'm afraid might happen, is that the situation in Gaza, where we have a buffer between us and the enemy on the border with Israel, and there's no kind of agreement. The only thing is we're holding this situation out of strength, and they're holding the situation because they can't do anything about it. That is the situation that's going to freeze into reality in Gaza. And I think when Israel finishes to conquer the southern part of Lebanon, there's going to be a yellow line in the southern part of Lebanon, and that is going to solidify too. And Israel's going to be in that situation unless something major changes in Iran. If the United States reaches an agreement with Iran that leaves the Hezbollah in place and the Hamas in place, Israel will leave its forces in place, and that is, I'm going to say, foreseeable future as of now. The American Marines land on some of the islands in the Middle East and bring Iran down to its knees. That might change. Which brings me to the core aspect of what we're talking about. In Gaza, in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Iran, is that the hatred of Israel, the hatred of the Jews, and in an extension, the hatred of the West, which is based on Judeo-Christian ideals, that is the main engine, that is the main reason, that is the main, I'm going to say, resistance that is keeping these regimes alive. So even if, let's say, take Jordan, for instance, who has a peace agreement with Israel, the leadership, the political leadership has reached a peace agreement with Israel, but the people still see resistance to the West and resistance to Israel as the same thing. President Trump, I think, understood very clearly that the resistance to the West and the resistance to the United States is a threat to the United States. And from day one, Iran has said that's what we need to do. From day one, the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, said that's what we need to do. From day one, ISIS said that's what we need. We need to resist Israel, resist the West. And that resistance to the West, more than anything, is not only a resistance to what America does or doesn't do, or Israel does or doesn't do. That's a resistance to what America is more than anything. It's about who we are. It says we are representatives of a mindset. And again, I need you to understand that the mindset that we represent, the Western civilization that we represent, Israel and the United States, the Western ethics and morality that we represent is basically a Bible-based morality, a Bible-based civilization, Judeo-Christian Bible-based, both Israel and the United States. What these countries, what these elements, what the core element in the Muslim world is mukawama. It means resistance, but not only a resistance in the physical manner, it's a resistance to these core values. And the war on Iran is a war not only against the Islamic Republic of Iran, but is a war against the core battle that this radical Muslim ideal that, by the way, is not only in Iran, it's all of the other countries of the Middle East. It is a fight against that ideal of death to America, death to Israel. And I find it fascinating that this comes about exactly on the weekend that connects Passover and Easter, which basically is the triumph of the Lord, the triumph of God's people, the triumph of God's promise over the angel of death, over the death and the anti-godliness, both in Egypt, okay, but the anti-godliness all over the world. And this is the whole story. And when Jesus walked through the streets of Jerusalem, and this is we're on Good Friday, and then gets sacrificed on the cross, what has he overcome? He's overcome the death that all of us are talking about. He's overcome the ungodliness. And even though they did put him down, even though they did nail him to the cross, even though they did kill him, God overcame the death. The exit from Egypt and moving into the promised land, okay? The dismantling of the hold that Satan has over us and that death has over us and bringing in salvation. Those are the main aspects that are kind of symbolically celebrated in Passover for the Jews and in Easter for the Christians. And this is what we're looking at right now, looking at God-centered. And even though the United States of America, Israel are not perfect, they're not biblical lands per se, but they actually convey biblical ideals and biblical ethics and biblical morals, okay? It is them overcoming the evil and the death that we're seeing all around us. And I thought that was an interesting connection to make. The sacrifice of Jesus on the cross is the redemption for the world. The story of Passover in Egypt means, proves, illustrates that God keeps his promises and God will bring us out of bondage. And even though we walk around in the wilderness for however long we have to walk around, God will bring us out of this bondage and he will bring us to the promised land. That's what we're talking about. Freedom from sin, freedom from death, freedom from evil. And that's why Israel's battles are not just political, they're also spiritual and historical. I want to mention something that kind of came up as I was preparing for this, and I think is kind of interesting. We live in a world where likes make might. Truth is decided by how many people agree with you. What we're seeing in the world is that democracy, the rule of the majority. And one of the things that the story of Passover and the story of Jesus and the Easter proves more than anything is that the majority is usually not right. The majority is usually wrong. And the children of Israel, even leaving Egypt, even walking through the Red Sea, definitely going around in circles in the wilderness, were saying, we want to go back. We don't want to do what we need to do. We don't want to go into the promised land. And it was a small minority. It was Moses and Aaron. Later on, it was Joshua and Caleb who almost forced the majority to go into the promised land. What I'm trying to say is that even it was the women who believed and saw Jesus for the first time. And the majority of the world couldn't believe that this was going to happen, and they were wrong. And again, as a sinner, to other sinners, I'm saying we as sinners are wrong. It is the spiritual led, the God chosen that actually lead us to the promised land. And the story of the Passover, or the story of the spies that toured the land, the story of Easter are both indications that most of us are wrong. Do not decide what's right and what's wrong based on what the majority is saying. Open your Bible, look into your heart. Have the Holy Spirit lead you. That's how you decide what's right and what's wrong. And looking at world events today and seeing how the hatred against Israel and the lies about what's going on are being spread, and going back to what happened in 2,000 years ago, and then going back what happened 3,000 years ago. Jesus, please put us on the right path. Help us walk the right path. Help us be the majority that is led by your Spirit and not the majority that is led by the masses. And I think that's what I came to share with you today. This is David Tal. This is a Balagan Connection. We're going to be connecting a lot of this as we go along. Hope to see you soon.